I never thought I'd be the type of woman to destroy 3 men's lives in one night. But when your ex-husband and his toxic brothers film themselves abandoning you at a stranger's wedding in the middle of nowhere, leaving you stranded without your phone, wallet, or dignity, well, sometimes the universe hands you the perfect opportunity for revenge. And trust me, I took it. If you've ever felt invisible, dismissed, or humiliated by someone who is supposed to love you, this story is for you. Hit that like button if you believe karma's real, and subscribe because this isn't the only revenge story I have to tell. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Sarah, and for 6 years I thought I was married to my best friend. Marcus was charming, funny, and came with a ready-made family that I desperately wanted to belong to. His older brothers, Derek and Justin, were loud, confident, and always the center of attention at every gathering. They ran a successful construction business together, and Marcus worked for them as their project manager. I should have seen the red flags earlier. You know, the way they'd laugh when I'd mess up their inside jokes, how they'd plan weekend trips and forget to invite me until the last minute, the constant pranks that always seemed to target me specifically, like the time they replaced all my shampoo with honey before Marcus's company Christmas party, or when they convinced the entire family I was allergic to shellfish, so I sat through 3 family dinners picking at salad while everyone else ate crab legs. Sarah's too sensitive, Marcus would say whenever I tried to talk to him about it. They're just having fun. You knew what you were signing up for when you married into this family. But I didn't know. I thought I was marrying someone who would protect me, not someone who would hand me over to his brothers like a toy they could play with. The breaking point came at Derek's wedding. Not Derek's actual wedding, that would come later, and trust me, that's where this story gets interesting. No, this was some random couple's wedding that Derek had crashed because he thought it would be funny content for their YouTube channel. Yes, they had a YouTube channel. The Morrison Brothers. 50,000 subscribers who loved watching 3 grown men pull elaborate pranks on unsuspecting people. Marcus wasn't technically part of the channel, but he was always their willing accomplice, their camera guy, their getaway driver. That Saturday started like any other weekend. Marcus had told me we were going to Derek's friend's wedding, a small ceremony about 2 hours outside the city. I bought a new dress, did my hair, even got my nails done, because Marcus had mentioned how important it was that I looked good. "The guys are really excited you're coming," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "They have something special planned." I should have known. The venue was beautiful, a rustic barn surrounded by rolling hills and wildflower fields. But the moment we arrived, something felt off. Derek and Justin were filming everything, hiding cameras in the bushes, whispering and laughing like they were planning something. Marcus kept checking his phone, nervous energy radiating off him. "What's going on?" I asked him as we found seats in the back. "Nothing, babe. Just relax and enjoy the ceremony." But I couldn't relax. The bride looked confused when she saw us. The groom kept glancing over with a worried expression. None of the other guests seemed to know who we were. Halfway through the ceremony, I realized why. This wasn't Derek's friend's wedding. This was a complete stranger's wedding, and we were crashing it for views. "Marcus," I hissed, grabbing his arm. "These people don't know us. We need to leave." He shushed me, pointing to Derek, who was now filming the bride and groom with a professional-looking camera. "It's fine, Sarah. It's all harmless fun. Nobody's getting hurt." But I was getting hurt. I was sitting in someone else's sacred moment, uninvited and unwelcome, all so his brothers could get content for their stupid channel. My face was burning with embarrassment and shame. After the ceremony, things got worse. Derek and Justin started mingling with the wedding party, introducing themselves as family friends from out of town, filling reactions as they slowly revealed they had no idea who anyone was. The bride's mother looked mortified. The groom's father looked angry. "We need to go," I whispered urgently to Marcus. "This is cruel. These people are going to remember this as the day their wedding was ruined by strangers." "You're being dramatic," Marcus said, not even looking at me. He was too busy filming Derek as he gave an impromptu speech at the reception, thanking the couple for letting them be part of this special day when they hadn't been invited at all. The final straw came during the reception dinner. I was sitting alone at a table in the corner. The brothers had mysteriously disappeared, leaving me with a group of confused relatives who kept asking how I knew the couple. I had nothing to say. I didn't know them. I didn't belong here. I was just a prop in someone else's cruel joke. That's when Derek appeared beside me, camera in hand. "Sarah! Perfect timing! We need you for the finale." "What finale?" I asked, but he was already grabbing my arm, pulling me toward the parking lot. "Don't worry, it'll be hilarious. Marcus is already in position." In the parking lot, Marcus was sitting in Derek's truck with the engine running. Justin was in the passenger seat, both of them grinning like children who just pulled off the perfect prank. "Get in, Sarah," Marcus called out the window. We're making our grand exit." But something in his eyes made my stomach drop. This wasn't a grand exit. This was something else entirely. I walked toward the truck slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run. But where would I go? I was 2 hours from home, in the middle of nowhere, with no car and no money. Marcus had my purse, my phone, everything. "Come on, Sarah!" Derek was still filming, zooming in on my face. "Don't you want to see the big finale?" I reached for the door handle, and that's when Marcus hit the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning in the gravel, leaving me standing in a cloud of dust. I watched in disbelief as they drove away, Derek hanging out the window with his camera, Justin whooping with laughter, and Marcus, my husband, a man I'd vowed to love and honor, gripping the steering wheel with a grin on his face. They left me, at a stranger's wedding, in the middle of nowhere, with nothing. I stood there for what felt like hours, waiting for them to come back. Surely this was just a joke, right? They'd drive around the block and come back laughing, ready to apologize for the scare. But minutes turned into an hour, and the wedding guests started leaving, and I was still standing in that parking lot, abandoned. The bride's father eventually approached me. "Miss, are you all right? Do you need us to call someone?" I wanted to die. This kind man, whose daughter's wedding had just been crashed by my in-laws, was showing me more compassion than my own husband. "I'm fine." I lied because what else could I say? That my husband and his brothers had filmed themselves abandoning me for YouTube content? That I was stranded 2 hours from home because my family thought my humiliation was entertainment? "Are you sure? We have a few guests driving back toward the city." I almost said yes, almost accepted help from these strangers whose special day had been ruined because of the people I'd married into. But the shame was too overwhelming. Instead, I thanked him and started walking toward the road, hoping to find a gas station or somewhere I could use a phone. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Wait, no, I didn't have my phone. Marcus had been carrying it because my dress didn't have pockets. But something was buzzing. I reached into my jacket pocket and found a small recording device. One of those tiny digital recorders, the kind Derek used for backup audio when they filmed their pranks. It must have fallen out of his pocket when he grabbed me for the final. I turned it on, and my blood ran cold. It was their conversation from earlier that morning. Derek's voice. "Okay, so we crashed the wedding, get some good reaction shots. Then we ditch Sarah at the reception. Marcus drives off, we film her reaction, and boom, viral content." Justin's voice. "What if she gets really upset?" Derek, again. "Even better. Genuine emotion always gets more views. Plus, Sarah's been way too comfortable lately. She needs a reality check about where she stands in this family." And then Marcus's voice, the voice of the man I'd loved for 6 years. "She'll be fine. Sarah always bounces back, and if she doesn't, well, maybe it's time she learned that some jokes aren't worth getting upset over." I sat down on a fallen log by the side of the road and replayed that recording 3 times. Each time, I felt something inside me break a little more. This wasn't a spontaneous prank. This was premeditated. They had planned to humiliate me, to abandon me, to film my pain for entertainment. And Marcus had been in on it from the beginning. I eventually made it home that night, thanks to the kindness of strangers, the same strangers whose wedding had been violated by my in-laws. The bride's cousin was driving back to the city and gave me a ride. She didn't ask questions, but I could see the pity in her eyes every time she glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Marcus was already asleep when I got home at midnight. Asleep, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just orchestrated the most humiliating experience of my life for views on a YouTube channel. I stood in our bedroom doorway watching him sleep peacefully and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't love. This hadn't been love for a long time. This was tolerance. This was me making excuses for inexcusable behavior. This was me shrinking myself smaller and smaller until I disappeared entirely. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I went to the guest room and sat on the bed with that recording device in my hands. I listened to it one more time, and this time, something else caught my attention. After their conversation about abandoning me, they kept talking. Derek's voice. Speaking of content, did you guys upload last week's video yet? The one where we convinced that kid at the mall that his girlfriend was cheating? Justin, not yet. We're sitting on a gold mine of footage. Remember the homeless guy we gave fake lottery tickets to, and the teenage girl we made think her parents were getting divorced? We could milk these for months. My stomach turned. This wasn't just harmless pranking. These were real people, real lives they were manipulating for entertainment. How many people had they hurt for views? How many people like me were out there humiliated and damaged by the Morrison brothers' idea of fun? That's when I decided I wasn't just going to leave Marcus. I was going to make sure the world knew exactly who the Morrison brothers really were. But I had to be smart about it. Derek and Justin weren't stupid. They were cruel, manipulative, and calculating. They had lawyers, they had money, and they had 50,000 subscribers who thought their pranks were hilarious. I was just Sarah, the uptight wife who couldn't take a joke. I started small. Over the next few weeks, I played the perfect wife. I apologized to Marcus for overreacting at the wedding. I laughed along when Derek and Justin told the story at family dinners, describing how dramatic I'd been when they drove off. I even helped them edit their videos, offering suggestions on pacing and transitions. See? Marcus said one evening as I handed him a USB drive with the wedding footage perfectly edited. I knew you'd come around. You're part of the family now. Part of the family. Right. The part they used for target practice. But while I played the role of the reformed wife, I was documenting everything. Every cruel comment, every planning session, every victim they bragged about. I created a hidden folder on our shared computer and started collecting evidence. The recording from the wedding was just the beginning. I found hours of unused footage on Derek's camera, raw, unedited content that showed exactly how they manipulated people. The homeless man they gave fake lottery tickets to, they filmed him for 20 minutes as he planned how he'd use the money to get his daughter Christmas presents, then laughed as they revealed the tickets were fake. The teenage girl they made think her parents were divorcing. She had a panic attack on camera, and they kept filming, but it was the video they'd never released that made me physically sick. It was footage from 2 years ago, from my birthday party. I remembered that day clearly. Marcus had thrown me a surprise party, invited all our friends and family. I thought it was the sweetest thing he'd ever done for me. But watching the raw footage, I realized the truth. It wasn't a birthday party. It was content. Derek and Justin had spent the entire evening setting up elaborate pranks designed to humiliate me in front of everyone I cared about. The cake that collapsed when I tried to cut it? Rigged. The presents that were glued shut? Intentional. The surprise stripper who showed up and made me so uncomfortable I left my own party early? All planned. And the worst part was watching Marcus in the background of every shot, grinning as I grew more and more distressed. At one point, the camera caught him whispering to Derek, "She's about to cry. Get a close-up." I sat in our home office at 2 a.m., watching my husband orchestrate my humiliation on my birthday, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Pure, crystalline rage. But rage wasn't enough. I needed a plan. That's when I remembered something Derek had mentioned casually a few weeks earlier. He was getting married, not the fake wedding he'd crashed, his actual wedding to his girlfriend of 3 years, Rebecca. She was sweet, naive, and completely unaware of what her fiancé really did for a living. She thought the YouTube channel was just silly guy stuff and had never actually watched any of their videos. The wedding was going to be huge. Derek had been bragging about it for months. 200 guests, a 5-star venue, professional photographers, and a videographer to capture every moment. It was going to be perfect. And I was going to destroy it. But not in the way you might think. I wasn't going to crash the wedding or make a scene. I was going to do something much more devastating. I was going to tell the truth. I spent 3 months planning. Every detail had to be perfect. Every piece of evidence had to be irrefutable. I couldn't just ruin Derek's wedding. I had to ruin the Morrison brothers' entire empire. First, I created a comprehensive dossier of their victims. Using their own footage, I tracked down as many people as I could find who had been pranked by the brothers. The homeless man, the teenage girl, the confused tourists they'd given fake directions to, the elderly woman they'd convinced was being evicted, dozens of people whose pain had been turned into content. I reached out to each of them carefully, explaining who I was and what I was trying to do. Most were eager to help once they learned their humiliation had been monetized without their consent. Some had been dealing with lasting trauma from the pranks. The teenage girl had developed anxiety so severe she dropped out of school. The elderly woman had been hospitalized after the fake addiction notice triggered a heart episode. Together we built a case. Not just a legal case, though several victims were interested in pursuing that, but a moral case. A story that would show the world exactly what the Morrison brothers' harmless pranks really cost. But I needed the perfect moment to release it all, and Derek's wedding was going to give me that moment. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Derek had hired a professional videographer for the wedding, but he'd also asked Marcus to bring backup cameras to capture behind-the-scenes moments for their channel. Marcus had volunteered me to help with the filming, thinking I'd finally accepted my role as part of their operation. What Derek didn't know was that I'd spent weeks learning everything I could about video streaming, social media algorithms, and viral content. While he was focused on his wedding day, I was preparing to hijack his entire platform. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the people the Morrison brothers had hurt, all the pain they'd caused for views and ad revenue. I thought about the version of myself who had stood in that parking lot 2 months earlier, abandoned and humiliated while they drove away laughing. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, smarter, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting herself and others from people like the Morrison brothers. Marcus was snoring beside me, completely oblivious to what was coming. In 12 hours, his entire world was going to collapse, and he had no idea. Part of me felt guilty. We'd had good times together, and I genuinely loved him once. But then I remembered his voice on that recording. Maybe it's time she learned that some jokes aren't worth getting upset over. My guilt evaporated. He'd made his choice. Now I was making mine. Derek's wedding day dawned crisp and clear, the kind of perfect autumn day that makes you believe in fairy tales. If only the bride knew she was marrying a monster. Rebecca looked radiant in her vintage lace dress, completely unaware that her new husband had built his career on the systematic humiliation of strangers. I watched her getting ready in the bride suite, surrounded by her bridesmaids, and felt a pang of sympathy. She deserved better than Derek Morrison. But today wasn't about saving Rebecca. Today was about justice. I'd arrived early with Marcus, ostensibly to help with the video setup. Derek and Justin were already there, directing the hired videographer and positioning their own cameras for bonus content. They were in their element, the center of attention, orchestrating every moment, completely in control. They had no idea that control was about to be ripped away from them. "Sarah!" Derek called out when he saw me. "Perfect timing. We need you to manage the live stream setup. Marcus said you've been learning about that stuff." "Of course." I smiled sweetly, hefting the equipment bag I'd brought. "I've got everything we need." What I actually had was 3 hidden cameras of my own, a mobile hotspot with unlimited data, and a laptop preloaded with enough evidence to destroy their lives. But Derek didn't need to know that yet. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Rebecca's family had spared no expense. The venue was a historic mansion surrounded by gardens. The flowers were stunning, and the string quartet played with perfect precision. Even the weather was cooperating. Derek stood at the altar looking handsome and confident. The perfect groom. His best men, Justin and Marcus, flanked him with matching grins. They thought they were untouchable. They thought their charm and their success made them immune to consequences. I sat in the back with the other videographers, my laptop open, pretending to monitor the live stream they'd set up for their YouTube channel. About 500 people were watching, mostly their regular subscribers, eager to see the Morrison brothers at a real wedding instead of crashing someone else's. The comments were flowing. "Derek looks so happy. Can't wait for the honeymoon pranks. Rebecca is so lucky. If only they knew." I let the ceremony proceed normally. Rebecca deserved to have her perfect moment walking down the aisle, her perfect photos, her perfect kiss with her new husband. Whatever happened next, she'd always had that. But once they were pronounced husband and wife, the real show began. During the cocktail hour, Derek started his usual performance. He mingled with guests, telling exaggerated stories about their YouTube channel, positioning himself as a lovable prankster rather than a manipulative predator. The older relatives laughed politely, not really understanding but charmed by his confidence. "We're just trying to bring a little laughter into the world," he told Rebecca's grandmother, his arm around his new wife. "Life's too short to take everything so seriously." That's when I made my first move. I positioned one of my hidden cameras at the bar, and I programmed my laptop to switch the live stream feed at preset intervals. While Derek was charming the relatives, I switched from the official wedding footage to something else entirely. The 500 viewers, expecting wedding content, suddenly found themselves watching Derek's unused footage from 2 years ago, the raw, unedited video of him and Justin convincing that teenage girl her parents were divorcing, including the part where she had a panic attack and they kept filming. The chat exploded. "What is this? Is this real? Holy shit, this is horrible." But I wasn't done. While the viewers processed what they were seeing, I'd already uploaded teaser clips to Derek's own social media accounts. A 30-second compilation of their coolest moments, set to wedding music with text overlay reading, "The Morrison Brothers, a love story. Full expose coming soon." The video started getting shared immediately. Back at the reception, Derek was oblivious. He was too busy being the center of attention, regaling guests with sanitized versions of their pranks. Marcus was helping coordinate the official videographer, and Justin was already 3 drinks deep, holding court with Rebecca's college friends. None of them had checked their phones in the past hour. None of them knew that their carefully constructed public image was crumbling in real time. But I knew. I could see the view count climbing on my laptop screen, could see the outraged comments flooding in, could see other YouTubers and commentary channels already preparing response videos. The internet was doing what it did best, taking something viral and amplifying it beyond all control. During dinner, I executed phase 2. I'd spent weeks creating fake social media accounts and building up networks of bot followers. Nothing illegal, just standard viral marketing techniques. When Derek stood up to give his speech thanking everyone for coming, I triggered a coordinated release across every platform simultaneously. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit. Dozens of accounts posted the same thing at exactly the same moment. Comprehensive video essays laying out the Morrison Bros' history of cruelty, complete with victim testimonials and psychological analysis of their behavior. I titled the main video, "The Morrison Brothers Wedding Special, How 3 Predators Built a YouTube Empire on Human Suffering." The timing was perfect. Derek was mid-speech, talking about love and commitment and building a life together. when his phone started buzzing. Then Justin's phone. Then Marcus's. Then half the phones in the reception hall. "What's going on?" Rebecca whispered to her maid of honor, glancing at her own buzzing phone. Derek tried to keep talking, but more and more guests were checking their phones, their expressions shifting from confusion to horror. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Oh my God, is this real?" That's when Derek finally checked his phone. I watched his face change as he scrolled through the notifications. The color drained from his cheeks. His confident smile faltered. He looked up at Justin, who was staring at his own phone with an expression of pure panic. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek's voice cracked slightly, "if you'll excuse me for just one moment." But it was too late for damage control. The story was everywhere, spreading faster than they could possibly contain it. Morrison Brothers Exposed was trending on Twitter. The video compilations were racking up hundreds of thousands of views. Commentary channels were already live streaming reactions to the footage. And sitting in the back of the reception hall, I closed my laptop and smiled. Derek's wedding wasn't ruined yet, but his life, as he knew it, was over. Justin approached Derek at the head table, both of them trying to keep their voices low, but I was close enough to hear. "How the fuck did this get out?" Justin hissed. "I don't know," Derek whispered back. The footage was encrypted. Nobody had access, except... They both turned to look at Marcus, who was still oblivious, chatting with one of Rebecca's cousins. "Marcus!" Derek called out sharply. But I knew they wouldn't figure it out in time. By now, the story had reached critical mass. Local news stations were picking it up. The victims I'd contacted were giving interviews to journalists. Law enforcement was being contacted about some of the potentially illegal pranks. Rebecca appeared at Derek's side, her face pale. "Derek, people are saying terrible things about you online. They're saying you hurt people for your videos. Tell me this isn't true." Derek looked at his new wife, opened his mouth, and for the first time in his life, had absolutely nothing to say. The moment stretched out, heavy, with the weight of years of lies finally catching up to him. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears as she realized his silence was an answer in itself. "The homeless man," she whispered. "The fake lottery tickets? That was real?" Derek's face crumpled. There was no charming his way out of this one. No way to spin it as harmless fun. The evidence was too overwhelming, too public, too damning. That's when he spotted me sitting in the back. The only person in the room who wasn't on their phone, who wasn't panicking, who was watching the chaos unfold with perfect calm. Our eyes met across the reception hall, and I saw the exact moment he realized who was responsible. I smiled, raised my champagne glass in a mock toast, and mouthed 2 words. Harmless fun. What happened next was better than anything I could have scripted. Derek stood up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. The crash echoed through the reception hall, causing every conversation to stop. 200 wedding guests turned to stare at the groom, whose face had gone from pale to bright red in a matter of seconds. "You," he snarled, pointing directly at me across the room. "You fucking bitch." The gasp that went up from the crowd was audible. Rebecca's grandmother clutched her pearls. Several guests pulled out their phones to record what was clearly about to become an epic meltdown. I remained seated, perfectly calm, my champagne glass still raised. "Is there a problem, Derek?" "You know exactly what the problem is?" He was storming across the reception hall now, pushing past startled guests, his wedding finery making him look like an angry penguin. "You destroyed everything!" "I didn't destroy anything," I replied as he reached my table. "I simply showed people who you really are." That's when Marcus finally understood. I watched his face as the pieces clicked into place, his wife sitting calmly while his brother-in-law had a public breakdown at his own wedding. His wife, who had mysteriously become interested in video editing and social media, his wife, who had access to all their unused footage. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the murmur of confused guests. "What did you do?" I stood up slowly, smoothing down my dress. Every eye in the room was on me now, including the professional videographer who was still filming despite the chaos. Perfect. "What did I do?" I repeated, my voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "I collected evidence of your systematic abuse of innocent people. I documented your deliberate cruelty. I gave a voice to your victims. And I made sure the world knows exactly who the Morrison brothers really are." Derek lunged toward me, but Justin caught his arm. "Smart man, assault at your own wedding, on camera, would have made things so much worse." "Those were just pranks," Derek shouted. "Harmless fun. Nobody got seriously hurt." "Nobody got seriously hurt." I pulled out my phone and began reading from my notes. "Amanda Richardson, age 16, developed severe anxiety and dropped out of school after you convinced her parents were divorcing as part of your harmless fun. Robert Martinez, a homeless veteran, was hospitalized after you gave him fake lottery tickets and he had a heart attack from the emotional trauma. Maria Santos, an elderly widow, nearly lost her apartment because your fake eviction notice triggered a panic response and she stopped taking her medication." The silence in the room was deafening. Rebecca had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Her parents looked horrified. Even some of Derek's groomsmen were backing away from him. "Should I continue?" I asked sweetly. "Because I have 47 more names on this list. 47 people whose lives you damaged for YouTube views. 47 human beings whose pain you monetized." "You're fucking crazy!" Derek screamed. "These people are lying! They're just trying to get money out of us!" "Actually," I smiled, pulling out the small recording device I'd found in my pocket that night they abandoned me. "And they're not lying at all, but you are." I pressed play, and Derek's own voice filled the reception hall. "Okay, so we crash the wedding, get some good reaction shots, then we ditch Sarah at the reception. Marcus drives off, we film her reaction, and boom, viral content." The collective intake of breath from 200 wedding guests was like a physical force. Rebecca stepped away from Derek like he was on fire. "What if she gets really upset?" Justin's voice continued from the recording. "Even better. Genuine emotion always gets more views. Plus, Sarah's been way too comfortable lately. She needs a reality check about where she stands in this family." And then Marcus's voice, the final nail in the coffin. "She'll be fine. Sarah always bounces back. And if she doesn't, well, maybe it's time she learned that some jokes aren't worth getting upset over." The silence that followed was absolute. Rebecca's father, a distinguished man in his 60s, stepped forward. His voice was quiet but carried clearly through the hall. "Get out," he said to Derek. "Get out of my daughter's wedding. Get out of this venue. Get out of our lives." "You can't throw me out," Derek protested. "This is my wedding too." "Not anymore," Rebecca said quietly. She was pulling off her wedding rings with shaking hands. I can't be married to someone who does these things to people." Derek's confident facade finally cracked completely. "Like a baby, please. This isn't what it looks like. Sarah's just jealous because..." "Because what?" Rebecca's voice was getting stronger. "Because she told the truth about what kind of man you are. Because she showed me exactly who I married. And then the professional videographer was still filming everything. Later, I'd learned that footage would be leaked online within hours, becoming the most watched wedding disaster video of all time. The Morrison brothers wouldn't just lose their YouTube channel, they'd become a cautionary tale about karma and consequences. But in that moment, watching Derek's world collapse in real time, all I felt was a deep, satisfied peace. Marcus approached me slowly, like he was approaching a dangerous animal. Sarah, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can... No, I said simply. We can't. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Divorce papers, I explained to the crowd, because why not make it a complete public spectacle? Filed yesterday. You'll be served officially on Monday, Marcus, but I thought you might want a heads up. His face went white. You can't be serious. Dead serious. And before you think about fighting me on it, you should know that I've documented everything. Every cruel comment, every planning session, every victim you laughed about. I've also frozen our joint accounts and had your access to our shared assets suspended pending the divorce proceedings. The beautiful thing about having 3 months to plan was that I'd had time to do things properly. A good lawyer, a forensic accountant, a private investigator, all the tools necessary to ensure that my divorce would be swift, decisive, and entirely in my favor. You vindictive bitch, Derek snarled. We'll sue you for defamation. We'll destroy you. I laughed, actually laughed for the first time in months. With what money, Derek? Your YouTube channel is being demonetized as we speak. Your sponsors are dropping you faster than hot potatoes. And once the criminal investigations begin into some of your more questionable pranks, legal fees are going to eat up whatever's left. That wasn't hyperbole. I'd already been contacted by 3 different district attorneys who were interested in pressing charges related to various Morrison Brothers pranks. Fraud, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The list was long and growing. Criminal investigations? Rebecca whispered. Oh, yes. I nodded. Turns out, convincing elderly people they're being evicted isn't actually legal. Neither is filming people without their consent and monetizing their emotional distress. The FTC is very interested in the Morrison Brothers' business practices. Derek looked like he was about to have a stroke. His grand wedding, his perfect day, his entire carefully constructed image, all of it was crumbling in front of 200 witnesses and at least 3 different cameras. Security, Rebecca's father called out. Please escort these gentlemen from the premises. Wait, I said, standing up. All eyes turned to me again. Before they go, there's one more thing. I pulled out my phone and opened the live stream app. Derek's YouTube channel was still broadcasting, though the view count had skyrocketed to over 50,000 people watching in real time. Ladies and gentlemen, I said directly to the camera. You've been watching the Morrison Brothers' final performance. After years of building their careers on the systematic humiliation of innocent people, karma has finally caught up with them. The chat was moving so fast it was unreadable. Comments of support, outrage at the brothers, and pure amazement at what they were witnessing live. Derek and Justin Morrison have spent years convincing their audience that cruelty is content, that other people's pain is entertainment. They've built a following by targeting the vulnerable, the homeless, the elderly, teenagers, and anyone else they thought couldn't fight back. I paused, letting that sink in for both the wedding guests and the online audience. But they made one crucial mistake. They thought I couldn't fight back either. They thought abandoning me at a stranger's wedding, filming my humiliation, and planning to monetize my pain was just another harmless prank. Derek tried to interrupt, but security had arrived and was flanking him now. And so I want everyone watching to understand something. I continued, my voice steady and clear. Actions have consequences. Cruelty has a price. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people you underestimate are the ones who end up having the last laugh. I ended the live stream with the touch of a button. The Morrison Brothers channel had just broadcast its own destruction to 50,000 viewers, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Derek was escorted out first, still screaming obscenities and threats. Justin followed, pale and silent, finally understanding the magnitude of what was happening to them. Marcus lingered, trying one last time to catch my eye, to find some crack in my armor where his old charm might still work. Sarah, please. He whispered as security approached him. 6 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I looked at him, really looked at him, this man I'd once loved enough to marry, who had helped orchestrate my public humiliation for views. Yes, I said quietly. It means I wasted 6 years of my life on someone who never saw me as anything more than content. Security escorted him out, and suddenly the reception hall was buzzing with conversation again. But it was different now. Guests were talking about what they'd just witnessed, about the revelations, about poor Rebecca, and how brave I'd been to speak up. Rebecca approached me, still in her wedding dress, her makeup streaked with tears. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I had no idea what kind of person he was, what they were doing to you, to all those other people. It's not your fault," I told her gently. "They're very good at hiding their true nature from the people they want to impress. What am I supposed to do now?" she asked, gesturing helplessly at the ruined reception, the overturned chairs, the abandoned head table. "You survive," I said simply. "You take back control of your life, and you remember that you deserve better than someone who thinks other people's pain is entertainment." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you for showing me the truth before it was too late to do anything about it." As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, many stopped to speak with me. Some wanted to apologize for laughing at the brothers' pranks in the past. Others wanted to share their own stories of being bullied or humiliated. A few offered support for whatever came next. But the most satisfying moment came when Rebecca's father approached me as I was gathering my things. "This," he said formally, "I want you to know that what you did here tonight took extraordinary courage. My daughter dodged a bullet, thanks to you. I didn't do it for Rebecca," I admitted. "I did it for me, and for all the people they hurt who never got the chance to fight back." He nodded approvingly. "The best revenge is often justice served publicly. You gave those boys exactly what they deserve." I drove home that night in perfect silence, no radio, no podcast, just the sound of my own breathing and the hum of tires on asphalt. For the first time in years, I felt completely, utterly free. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of consequences cascading exactly as I'd planned them. The Morrison Brothers YouTube channel was permanently banned within 48 hours. Not just demonetized, completely removed from the platform. Their other social media accounts followed suit as the major platforms scrambled to distance themselves from the controversy. Derek's marriage to Rebecca was annulled within a week. She moved back in with her parents and started therapy to deal with what she called the trauma of almost spending my life with a sociopath. Her father paid for the best divorce attorney in the state to make sure Derek couldn't touch any of the wedding gifts or shared assets. The criminal investigations I'd mentioned weren't idle threats. Derek was charged with fraud in 3 different states for his fake lottery ticket pranks. Justin faced harassment charges for their eviction notice schemes. Marcus, as their accomplice and getaway driver, was named in several civil lawsuits filed by victims seeking damages for emotional distress. But the most beautiful consequence was the social media pile-on. Remember, this was their world. Online content, viral videos, public opinion. They'd built their entire identity around being popular, being funny, being loved by their audience. Watching that crumble was exquisite. The hashtag Number Morrison Brothers exposed trended for weeks. Commentary YouTubers made careers dissecting their old content and explaining why it is abusive rather than entertaining. TikTok users created reaction chains, showing their horror at some of the brothers' worst pranks. Even late-night talk show hosts made jokes about them. They went from minor internet celebrities to widely recognized cautionary tales about the dangers of prank culture. Their names became synonymous with cruelty masquerading as comedy. The victims I'd connected with formed a support group, and several appeared on talk shows to discuss the lasting impact of the brothers' pranks. Amanda Richardson, the teenager who developed anxiety, became an anti-bullying advocate. Robert Martinez, the homeless veteran, used his story to highlight how the vulnerable are often targeted by content creators looking for easy laughs. My divorce from Marcus was finalized in record time. The forensic accountant I'd hired discovered that the brothers had been funneling YouTube revenue through shell companies to avoid taxes, which added federal charges to their growing list of legal problems. I walked away with the house, half of Marcus's construction business shares, and enough alimony to ensure I'd never have to worry about money again. But the most satisfying moment came 3 months after the wedding. I was grocery shopping when I spotted a familiar figure in the cereal aisle. Derek, looking haggard and tired, wearing a rumpled grocery store uniform with a name tag that read, Dan. He'd clearly been forced to take whatever work he could find after his internet empire collapsed. He saw me at the same moment I saw him. For a second, we just stared at each other across the Cheerios and cornflakes. Then he quickly looked away and hurried toward the back of the store. I didn't follow him. I didn't gloat or make a scene. I simply finished my shopping and left, because the sight of Derek Morrison, former YouTube star, former groom, former predator, stocking shelves under an assumed name was victory enough. The woman who had been abandoned at that wedding 6 months earlier wouldn't have recognized the person I'd become. That woman was scared, diminished, convinced she deserved the treatment she was receiving. This woman had learned that sometimes the best way to heal from being underestimated is to show everyone exactly what you're capable of when you stop playing nice. As I'm telling you this story, it's been a full year since Derek's wedding disaster. Marcus sent me a letter 6 months ago, forwarded through my attorney, since I blocked him on everything else. He wanted me to know he was sorry, that he'd been in therapy, that he finally understood how wrong they'd all been. He asked if we could meet for coffee to find closure. I sent the letter back unopened. Some apologies come too late, and some closure you have to create for yourself. Derek and Justin's legal troubles are ongoing. The IRS investigation into their tax evasion is apparently going very well for the IRS. Rebecca is engaged to a kindergarten teacher who thinks pranking people is something only children do, and only to people who consent to play along. As for me, I bought a small house by the ocean with my divorce settlement. I started a non-profit organization that provides legal support to people who've been victimized by prank content creators. We've helped dozens of people get justice, compensation, or simply the satisfaction of seeing their tormentors face consequences. I also started my own YouTube channel. Not about revenge, though this story will probably be my most popular video, but about recognizing manipulation, setting boundaries, and understanding that you don't have to accept cruelty just because someone calls it a joke. The channel has grown to over 200,000 subscribers. Ironically, I now have 4 times the audience the Morrison brothers ever did. The difference is that my content helps people instead of hurting them. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did to Derek, Justin, and Marcus, if I think my revenge went too far, if I feel guilty about destroying their lives so publicly and permanently. The answer is simple: no. I didn't destroy their lives. I revealed the lives they were already living. Lives built on the systematic abuse of people they thought couldn't fight back. I just made sure the world could see exactly who they really were. And you know what? The world decided it didn't like what it saw. That's not revenge. That's justice. And sometimes, when the systems that are supposed to protect people fail, justice has to come from the people who were smart enough, patient enough, and strong enough to serve it themselves. The Morrison brothers taught me that some people will only respect you when they have no choice, so I made sure they had no choice. And I've never slept better in my life. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or dismissed by someone who was supposed to care about you, I want you to know something. You are not powerless. You are not stuck. And you are definitely not alone. Hit that like button if you believe karma is real. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about people who refuse to stay victims. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's getting free. Until next time, this is Sarah reminding you that underestimating someone might just be the last mistake you ever make.